Just take a look at this abomination. Black AF History, the unwhitewashed story of America. So I found this on Amazon and it like popped up for some reason, suggested to me. I don't know why Amazon would feel like I would want to pay my hard-earned money for this literal shit. But here we have a book that's being sold on Amazon, and of course it's a black author, you know, titled Black AF History, the Unwhitewashed Story of America. So basically a book of lies is what it's going to be. It says it's from acclaimed columnist and political commentator, yeah, I didn't see that coming, Michael Harriot, a searingly smart, doubtful, and bitingly hilarious retelling of, I'm sure it's a hilarious retelling of American history because it's all a joke, none of it's true, that corrects the record and showcases the perspectives and experiences of black Americans. America's backstory is a whitewashed mythology implanted in our collective memory. It is the story of the Pilgrims on the Mayflower building a new nation. It is George Washington's cherry tree and Abraham Lincoln's log cabin. It is the fantastic tale of slaves that spontaneously teleported themselves here with nothing but strong backs and Negro spirituals. It is a sugar-coated legend based on an almost true story. Almost true story. Let's break that down real quick. So, for one, let's talk about what whitewashed is. Whitewashed is a new term that was invented by the Jews and handed down to their golems, the blacks, to use against us. And what whitewashed means is that when a black person wants to tell a lie about our history, when they want to appropriate our history and cut us out of it, and we point out that's not what actually happened. Here's evidence proving that's not what actually happened. This is their get out of jail free card, kind of like the race card. They use it exactly like the race card. It's just another version of that, where they can simply say, "Oh well, that history's whitewashed. That information, those facts are whitewashed." Okay, so what you're trying to say is that blacks created America, and we simply wrote the history and wrote them out of it. But if you're the culture and the people who create a country, how could somebody else come along and write you out of it? Doesn't make any sense. And here he's saying that like slaves spontaneously teleported themselves. Nobody has literally said that ever. Nobody has said that they just spontaneously arrived here. We all know how they got here, and they all know why they were brought here. They were not brought here to build a country. They were not brought here to aid in building a country or to participate in building a country. They were here to do manual labor in the fields and clean homes. That's it. That's all they were brought here for. That is the true history. He's saying it's a sugar-coated legend based on an almost true history. No, it is. It is the actual true history. There were pilgrims that landed, sailed on the Mayflower, and landed here, and then more came over. And then, eventually, we made a country for ourselves. So he goes on to say here, it should come as no surprise that the dominant narrative of Americans' history is blighted with errors and oversights. After all, history books were written by white men with their perspective at the forefront. It could even be said that the devaluation and erasure of the black experience is as American as apple pie. So, yes, of course, the dominant narrative is going to be, written by white men. It's not blighted with errors or oversights. It's simply what actually happened. We created a country. You did not. It is our history in this country, not yours. So, of course, it is going to be full of what we did and not what you did, because you didn't do anything. It's as simple as that. This ridiculous notion that we have to pander to blacks and care about everything that ever happened to them or anything that they may or may not have done, this idea that we have to allow them to appropriate our history, and that's what this book is doing. It's appropriating our history and trying to erase us. It's funny because he's talking about the devaluation, erasure of black experience, but in this book he's literally devaluating and erasing white history and white culture from this country and trying to replace it with a made-up fake black history and black culture. So this is the real problem. You know, these people didn't do anything. Okay, they did not create their own countries. They had no countries. They sold each other into slavery. They were brought here as slaves. They did not build this country. They have no real history here. Their history involves, icons and heroes who literally ran away. That's their history here. People who ran away. They didn't create anything here. They have not helped us maintain it at all. In fact, they've done the opposite. They've destroyed it. But this book is, and there's many like this. You can go through Amazon and you'll find a lot exactly like this. They sell the same kind of lies. $23.99 to read a bunch of lies. I can hear lies for free. I can literally just turn on the news and listen to politicians talk if I want to hear lies, and it's free. I don't have to pay for that. But it comes down to the fact that these people are in fact ashamed of their history. There is no other reason why you would need to appropriate someone else's history unless you are ashamed of your own. But, I mean, that comes as no surprise because they never invented a written language where they could actually record their history. Their history started being recorded when we made contact with them, when Arabs made contact with them. Anything that they did was written down by others because they never created their own written language. And that's not our fault. That's their fault. So they make books like this, they spread lies like this, because they are ashamed of their history. They use the word whitewashed, just like they use the race card, to basically shut down any truth or facts that are stated about them or about their lies, to try to say that, oh, the white man just wrote us out of history. No, you just weren't part of it. That's all there is to it. But this all comes down to an even more disturbing thing, the cultural replacement here in the United States of America. And that is the real issue. They can write these, fake comedy books if they want. Who cares? I mean, of course, Amazon's going to put it on here because Jeff Bezos is owned by Z-Juice and basically has to do whatever he's told. So they're going to put these books on there that are obvious lies, that are anti-white racism, that erase us from our own history, that devalue everything that we did throughout history, especially here in our own country. But they're going to allow this because the end goal is a cultural replacement. That's how you defeat a country without actually having to go to war with them. You just replace the culture that created the country. Because as I said in a previous video, a country is defined by the culture that creates it and maintains it. If you replace that culture with a culture that has never built or maintained anything, you can easily destroy that country. And if you brainwash all the native people there into accepting this destructive culture that didn't create their country or help maintain it, then those people will actually help you destroy their own country. And that is the end goal. It's cultural replacement. And we've gone through a lot of different, what I will call pandering eras, where we pander specifically to Africans. You had the whole abolition movement to free them, and then the movement to make sure that they stayed here and were given free citizenship. Then we moved on to the desegregation movement, the access to whites movement, as I like to call us, because it had absolutely nothing to do with civil rights. They just wanted access to everything that we created, so they could do things like this. Erase us from it. Make up new terms like whitewashed, so they can replace our history and claim it as theirs, so they can appropriate our history. That's what the whole point of that so-called civil rights movement was. It was an appropriation of everything it was access to everything we had ever created and us, so they could appropriate it. Now we're in Pandervision 2.0, where you will not see books, movies, any kind of media whatsoever that actually tells the truth, that actually corrects things like this book and others like it. You will not see that showcased anywhere. You will have to look hard to find it. It's getting to the point you're going to have to look very hard to find an actual history book. Because books like this are going to start being taught in schools. This is going to become the narrative. Even though it's an obvious lie, this is what's going to become the narrative. We are in Pandervision 2.0, where everyone has been brainwashed, socially conditioned to pander to this one group that is 13% of our population and has done absolutely nothing here but pick some cotton and clean some houses. So this is the thing. We need to start speaking up. We need to start writing our own books. We need to start showing outrage at this stuff, because this isn't innocent. Eventually, it is going to replace our culture. And our culture here in America, the white culture, European culture, that's what created this country and has maintained it for so long. And as you can see, this country is starting to fall apart because of multiculturalism, because our government, top to bottom, is multicultural. It's not just multiracial. Race doesn't have so much to do with it as culture does. Yes, I understand that, you know, some races have specific culture and it's kind of just genetically ingrained in them, but it's not every member of that race. You know, there are people who can adopt a different culture. And when they do that, they become people who produce, who build, who create, who maintain. It's got to do with the culture, and we need to protect our culture. And that is the bottom line. So we need to start speaking out against stuff like this. We need to start sending complaints to these companies saying, hey, stop blacking out our history. Stop the blackout of our history. Stop appropriating our history. Stop publishing books. Stop selling books, or, you know, producing media, etc., that blacks out our history. Stop allowing these former slaves, these outdated pieces of farm equipment, to appropriate our history. It's not theirs. They do not have the right to change it. They do not have the right to alter it. They do not have the right to do anything with it, because it doesn't belong to them. This country doesn't belong to them. Period. You know, if they get mad about it, they get mad about it. You know, why should we care what 13% of the population cares or thinks when that 13% had absolutely nothing to do with creating this country? We need to stop allowing them to black out our history. We need to stop allowing them to black out our culture. We need to take the reins back in our country. We need to get all these uncivilized people out of our government who cannot adopt our culture and our ways and help us maintain this country instead of trying to take it for themselves or destroy it completely.